I woke up that Tuesday morning at 5:47 a.m. with my stomach in knots. Something felt wrong. You ever get that feeling where your body knows danger before your brain catches up? That was me, lying in my childhood bedroom at 28 years old, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazy circles above my head. I'd moved back home 6 months ago after my startup got acquired for $500,000. Dad said family sticks together, celebrates together. But that morning, my gut screamed otherwise. My phone buzzed. Bank notification. I grabbed it, squinting at the bright screen. Someone had tried accessing my savings account at 3:14 a.m. Failed login attempt. Then another at 3:19. And another at 3:23. My heart hammered against my ribs. I sat up fast, sweat beading on my forehead despite the AC running full blast. Who the hell was trying to break into my account in the middle of the night? I pulled up my banking app with shaking fingers, entered my password, and stared at my balance, $547,392.18. Everything I'd worked for since I was 19. Years of coding in coffee shops, living on ramen, pitching to investors who looked through me like I was invisible. This money represented my escape, my future, my proof that I'd made something of myself despite everyone saying I wouldn't amount to anything. The failed login attempts came from inside the house. Same IP address. My blood ran cold. I sat there frozen, my mind racing through possibilities like a computer running algorithms. Dad had been acting weird lately. Real weird. 3 weeks ago, he'd asked me detailed questions about my bank security over Sunday dinner. Just curious how these young folks handle their money, he'd said, laughing that deep laugh that used to make me feel safe. Then last Tuesday, my brother Alan had casually mentioned needing my account number to send me a birthday gift. My birthday wasn't for 4 months. I thought back to last Friday night. I'd come home late from meeting my girlfriend Christine, and I'd found Dad and Alan in the study with papers scattered everywhere. They'd jumped when I walked in, shuffling documents into folders like teenagers caught with something they shouldn't have. Dad said they were organizing tax returns. But it was midnight. Who does taxes at midnight? My hands trembled as I opened my laptop. I needed evidence. Something concrete. I pulled up my account activity from the past month and felt sick. There were dozens of small test transactions I hadn't noticed before. $5 here, $3 there. All initiated and immediately cancelled. Someone was testing the waters, figuring out the system, learning the patterns before they made their real move. That someone was family. My family. The people who were supposed to protect me. I grabbed my hoodie and crept downstairs at 6:15 a.m., moving like a ghost through my own house. Everything looked different now. The family photos on the walls felt like lies. Mom smiling in her wedding dress. She'd passed away 4 years ago from cancer, and I'd used my first startup money to pay for her treatment. Dad had cried and called me his hero. Alan had hugged me and promised we'd always have each other's backs. Those memories felt poisoned now. I made coffee in the kitchen, trying to act normal even though my hands shook so bad I spilled grounds all over the counter. The house was too quiet. That heavy silence before a storm. I heard Dad's alarm go off upstairs. Then Alan's. Within 20 minutes, they'd both be down here, probably ready to make their move. My phone buzzed again. Christine, morning baby. Coffee later. I stared at her message, wanting so badly to call her, to tell her everything. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I knew exactly what I was dealing with. I texted back a quick definitely and added a heart emoji, trying to maintain some piece of normalcy while my world crumbled. I needed to protect myself. Fast. I opened my banking app again and started the transfer process, moving my money to a new account I'd opened 6 months ago at a different bank. An account nobody knew about. My emergency escape fund had become my only lifeline. My fingers flew across my phone screen as I initiated transfers. The main account had a daily transfer limit of $50,000, which meant I'd need multiple days to move everything. But I didn't have multiple days. I could feel time running out like sand through my fingers. So I got creative. I set up a business account transfer that bypassed the personal limits, routing the money through my LLC. $300,000 gone in one transaction. Then I called the bank's priority line. This is Freddie Mitchell. I need to speak with someone about suspicious activity on my account. The representative, Maria, sounded concerned immediately. I explained the failed login attempts, the test transactions. She put me on hold. Those 3 minutes felt like 3 hours. I paced the kitchen, watching the ceiling for any sound of movement upstairs. Mr. Mitchell, I'm flagging your account and implementing additional security measures. We're also processing an expedited transfer of your remaining funds to your designated backup account. This is highly irregular activity. Maria's voice was professional but warm. She believed me. That mattered more than she'd ever know. By 6:47 a.m., every dollar was in motion. Untouchable. Safe. I felt this surge of power mixed with devastating sadness. I just protected myself from my own father and brother. The two men who were supposed to love me unconditionally. The two men I'd trusted with everything. I heard them coming down the stairs at 7:02 a.m. Dad's heavy footsteps, Alan's lighter ones right behind. They were talking in low voices, the kind of whispered conversation that stops when someone enters the room. I positioned myself in the hallway near Dad's study, pretending to tie my shoe. They walked right past me into the study and closed the door. Not all the way. They left it cracked open maybe 2 inches. Enough. Today's the day, Dad said, his voice cold and calculating. Nothing like the warm father who'd raised me. I talked to Kenny at the bank. He owes me favors from way back. Once we get past the security questions, we're in. $500,000 split 2 ways, son. $250,000 each. My heart stopped. Kenny Richardson worked at my bank. He'd been at our house for barbecues. I'd considered him family. Alan laughed. Actually laughed. What about Freddie? He's gonna notice his account is empty, Dad. He's not stupid, even if he acts like he's better than us with his tech money and his fancy girlfriend. By the time he notices, the money will be offshore. Panama accounts. Untraceable. We'll tell him he must have been hacked. Hell, we'll even help him file a police report. Play the concerned family. Dad's voice dripped with manipulation. He owes us anyway. We raised him. Fed him. That money should have been family money from the start. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like someone had wrapped steel bands around it and was tightening them slowly. These weren't strangers. This was my father. The man who taught me to ride a bike, who sat through my terrible middle school band concerts, who cried at my college graduation. And Alan, my younger brother by 3 years, who I'd protected from bullies, who I'd helped with homework, who I'd given $5,000 to just last month when he said he needed help with rent. All lies. All manipulation. All about my money. When do we do it? Alan asked. I could hear papers rustling. I need this, Dad. Melissa's been on me about buying a house. And Trevor's college fund ain't gonna build itself. Freddie doesn't have kids. He doesn't understand real responsibility. The audacity. The absolute nerve. I'd put Trevor through summer camp last year. I'd bought Melissa that expensive necklace for her birthday. I'd been there for every family crisis, wallet open, no questions asked. And this was my thank you. This was my family. We do it at 9 when the bank opens. Kenny's shift starts at 8:30. Give him time to settle in, access the systems. Freddie will be at the gym. He goes every Tuesday at 8:15 like clockwork. Dad sounded so sure of himself. So confident they had me figured out. They didn't know I was standing right outside, hearing every word. They didn't know I'd already won. I stepped away from the door, my mind crystal clear despite the emotional chaos churning in my gut. I needed to play this smart. Let them think everything was going according to their plan. Let them walk right into the trap they'd set for themselves. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed my gym bag from the hook by the door, and called out loud enough for them to hear, heading to the gym. See you guys later. Have a good workout, son. Dad's voice floated back, warm and fatherly. Oscar-worthy performance. Don't forget we're having dinner at Aunt Maureen's tonight. I walked out to my car, got in, and drove exactly 3 blocks. Then I parked behind a convenience store, pulled out my laptop, and connected to my mobile hotspot. I wasn't going anywhere. I was going to watch this whole thing unfold in real time. I had access to my bank accounts, security cameras in the house that I'd installed last year for safety, and a growing sense of cold fury that surprised me with its intensity. At 8:33 a.m., I watched through the camera as Dad and Alan sat at the dining room table, Dad's laptop open between them. They were smiling. Actually smiling. Alan made a joke I couldn't hear through the camera, and Dad clapped him on the shoulder. 2 conspirators, completely at ease with their betrayal. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Is this Freddie Mitchell? A woman's voice. Professional. This is Detective Rowena Paulson with the Financial Crimes Unit. Your bank contacted us about the suspicious activity on your account. We need to discuss some things. I told Detective Paulson everything. The failed login attempts, the test transactions, the conversation I'd overheard. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she said something that made my blood sing with vindication. Mr. Mitchell, you've just handed us a case on a silver platter. Bank fraud involving an employee is federal. We're talking serious prison time. Can you get us audio of this conversation? I had recording software on my phone. Voice activated. It had caught everything from the hallway. Every word. Every damning detail. I sent her the file right there, sitting in my car behind a 7-Eleven, watching my father and brother on my laptop screen as they prepared to destroy me. We're sending officers to your location now. Don't confront them. Don't let them know you're aware. We need to catch them in the act. Paulson's voice was firm. Where are you currently? I gave her my address and location. She told me to stay put. 45 minutes later, I watched through the security camera as 2 unmarked cars pulled up to my house. 4 plainclothes detectives got out. They knocked on the door. Dad answered, his face a perfect mask of confused hospitality. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I watched Dad's expression change from friendly to confused to panicked in about 30 seconds. Alan appeared behind him. 1 detective held up a badge. Another held up a warrant. Dad's face went grey. Alan tried to run. Actually tried to run out the back door. They had officers waiting there too. I watched my baby brother get handcuffed on our back patio, the same patio where we'd had countless summer barbecues. Detective Paulson called me at 9:47 a.m. You can come home now, Mr. Mitchell. We need your statement. I drove back slowly, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. When I pulled into the driveway, there were police cars everywhere. Neighbors stood on their lawns, phones out, recording everything. The Taylor family from next door, the Johnsons from across the street, old Mrs. Lopez who'd known me since I was 5 years old. All watching my family's destruction play out in real time. I walked inside. Dad and Alan were in the living room, separated, each with a detective. Dad looked up when I entered, and the expression on his face was something I'll never forget. Not shame. Not remorse. Rage. Pure, undiluted rage that he'd been caught. You set us up, he hissed. You set up your own family. What kind of son does that? Something inside me snapped. All the pain, all the betrayal, all the years of being the responsible one, the good son, the family bank. It erupted. What kind of father steals from his own son? What kind of father plots with his other son to destroy the one who's been supporting both of you for years? I paid for Mom's cancer treatment. I paid your mortgage when you lost your job. I bought Alan's kids Christmas presents. And this is what I get. You trying to steal everything I've worked for. Alan started crying. Actual tears streaming down his face. Man, I'm sorry. Dad said you wouldn't miss it. He said you'd just make more. You're smart with computers and stuff. You'd bounce back. I wouldn't miss $500,000. My voice cracked. You thought I wouldn't notice my entire life savings disappearing. Detective Paulson pulled me aside into the kitchen while her colleagues processed Dad and Alan. She had kind eyes, dark brown with crow's feet that suggested she smiled a lot. Not today though. Today she looked tired and sad. Your father's been planning this for months, Mr. Mitchell. We found emails between him and Kenneth Richardson going back to February. They have a gambling problem. Both of them. Your father owes over $80,000 to some very dangerous people. The room spun. Gambling. Dad had sworn off gambling after Mom died. She'd hated it, the way it consumed him in my childhood. I remembered her crying at the kitchen table, bills spread out, Dad promising for the 100th time that he'd stop. I thought he had stopped. I thought Mom's death had changed him. Alan was in for $50,000. Different debt, but same pressure. They saw your money as an easy solution to problems they'd created. Paulson showed me printed emails. Dad's words in black and white: Freddie won't prosecute family. We get in, get out, disappear the money, and he'll never have the guts to turn us in. Blood is thicker than water. Wrong. So catastrophically wrong. There's more, Paulson said gently. Kenneth Richardson has been helping your father access your account information for weeks. Transaction histories, security protocols, everything. He's already been arrested at the bank. His supervisor found irregularities this morning when they pulled your file after your call. I thought about all those times Kenny had been at our house. Laughing, eating our food, acting like a friend. He'd been casing me. They'd all been casing me. Aunt Maureen arrived at 11:30 a.m., crying so hard she could barely stand. She was Mom's older sister, the only family member I had left that I trusted. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like her signature perfume and vanilla, and I finally let myself break down. I sobbed into her shoulder like I was 5 years old again, my whole body shaking. Your mama would be heartbroken, she whispered. She'd be so proud of you for being smart, for protecting yourself. But Lord, she'd be destroyed by what your father became. He was a good man once, baby. I don't know what happened to him. I knew what happened. Addiction happened. Debt happened. Desperation happened. And instead of asking for help, instead of being honest, he'd chosen to destroy his own son. Alan was still crying in the living room. Dee, please. Please don't let them take me to jail. Think about Melissa. Think about Trevor and the baby. They need me, man. I made a mistake. I'll pay you back. Every penny. I swear on Mom's grave. Something cold settled in my chest. You swore on Mom's grave last year that you'd pay me back the $5,000 for rent. I never saw $1 of it. You swore on Mom's grave you'd stop asking for money. 2 months later you needed $3,000 for Trevor's medical bills that I later found out didn't exist. You've been lying to me for years, Alan. Using Mom's memory as a weapon. That ends today. His face crumpled. Dad just stared at me with pure hatred. No apology. No remorse. Just fury that his plan had failed. They took Dad and Alan away in handcuffs at 12:43 p.m. Federal charges: conspiracy to commit bank fraud, identity theft, wire fraud. Kenneth Richardson was facing additional charges for abuse of his position. The prosecutors told me all three were looking at minimum 5 years, possibly 10 depending on plea deals. Dad and Alan would likely serve less if they cooperated, but their lives as they knew them were over. Melissa called me 17 times that afternoon. I finally answered on the 18th. Freddie, please. I didn't know anything about this. You have to believe me. Alan told me he was getting a bonus from work. How am I supposed to feed my kids now? How am I supposed to pay rent? Her voice was desperate, breaking. I'll set up an account for Trevor's education. The kids don't deserve to suffer for their father's choices. But Melissa, I can't help you beyond that. I'm sorry. I really am. I hung up before she could argue. Before guilt could make me cave. I'd enabled this family for years. That ended now. Christine came over that night. I'd finally told her everything. She held me while I stared at the wall, emotionally hollowed out. You did the right thing, she kept saying. You protected yourself. You have to know that. I nodded, but I felt empty. I'd won. My money was safe. My future was secure. But I'd lost my family in the process. Was it worth it? At 2 a.m., lying awake in my childhood bed, I decided yes. It had to be worth it. Because the alternative was letting them destroy me. Months later, I moved into my own place. A loft downtown, modern and clean, with floor-to-ceiling windows that let in natural light. No family photos on the walls. Just my future ahead of me. Christine helped me unpack, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe without that weight on my chest. Aunt Maureen visited every Sunday. She'd disowned Dad, told him she couldn't forgive what he'd done. Alan sent letters from county jail waiting for sentencing. I returned them unopened. Maybe someday I'd read them. Maybe someday I'd forgive. But not today. Today I was choosing myself. The money I'd saved wasn't just money anymore. It was freedom. Independence. Proof that I could stand alone. I started a new company, hired people I trusted, built something meaningful. Every success felt like a middle finger to everyone who'd tried to tear me down. Detective Paulson called occasionally to update me on the case. Dad and Alan took plea deals. 4 years for Dad, 3 for Alan. Kenneth got 6. When she told me about their sentencing, I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not sadness. Just acceptance that this was the consequence of their choices. Christine asked me once if I regretted turning them in. I thought about it honestly. No, I said finally. I regret that they made me have to. But I don't regret protecting myself. They taught me that blood doesn't make you family. Loyalty does. Love does. Respect does. They had none of those things. I built a life I was proud of. Without them. Because of them. And I never looked back.